Was this
board questions?
Was this the one that you thought the lifespan was a little short on anyway? Is this the one that?
Those are 11 and 12.
Oh, so this isn't even.
Yeah.
Is there any way that this could have been seen prior to?
We looked in drawings. We couldn't see anything. This was back in 20 years ago, so we didn't necessarily have the best drawings for it or anything.
So it's buried into the filter system.
Yeah, we have probably 4 feet of anthracite that we'd have to go through to get to the media bed. So
that makes.
Well, we know it's 20 years old. It needs to be done. I'd like to, if we're going to do it, I'd like to make sure we have a decent amount of lifespan in the works. So I'll make a motion to approve the resolution and ratify the award of the water treatment plant filters and clarifiers for a total of $1,610,402.90.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor say it. I'm sorry, Bill.
Just have a question. You've got figures in here in this particular resolution. Don't you think we should change the resolution to reflect the exact cost?
Yeah, that's why I made sure I stated the cost.
The new resolution.
Do they add up? The 1 million. What was it? $1,222,002.64 plus $242,000 is $1,464,2.64, and you wanted a 10%.
So I put it. Are you on the now? Therefore, it be resolved, Bill. Sorry, I have a paper copy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at the end, I asked for with additional funding of $266,000 for the total project of $1,610,402.90. The very end of it, I asked for the additional funds. Originally, it did not have it was 1.
So you're asking for another $24,000?
I'm asking for $266,000.
Okay, 242 plus 24.
Correct.
So if you add 1.222.002.64 and 264, do you get 1.586? That's what I'm asking.
There was.
Because they don't add up.
So you have the 1.222 plus you have the 10% from the original one. So that's an additional $122,226. And then and then after that you should get the rest of the math on it. There's the second one right after it.
All right. I just want to make sure they add up, and I want to make sure that the record reflects the correct totals on here.
Okay, are you good? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you,
Robert.
guys.
Thank you. Discussion items. A resolution authorizing the submittal of a multimodal transportation and mitigation options fund and carbon reduction program application with the Colorado Department of Transportation. And I believe the director of our Parks and Recreation, Carol, has been there for 30 years, is going to talk to us about that.
Good evening, President Pro, board members. Carol Cosby, Director of Parks and Recreation. Tonight, actually I mentioned this at the last board meeting, but tonight I do have a resolution and a support letter for Phase 2 of Civic Center Trail. Last year we were awarded Phase 1, and we're in design currently for Phase 1, and a call for projects came out. Our draft is due tomorrow. We have the grant ready to go, but we need a resolution from our board and also a support letter from our board to apply for this grant. This is MMOF fund, so there is no commitment from the district. The total cost of this project is $501,562.06. And we're hoping to put that application in tomorrow. We will be presenting our project on April 8th, and the award should go, I believe, at the end of April to award the projects for the following year.
So do we need to remove this from discussion item and make an action item? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking if, yes, if you'd like to move it to an action item, that would be great, to approve the resolution and the support letter that is there before you tonight.
Okay. Board, what's your pleasure?
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. We good? Okay.
You
We
still
can move
need
it to
a-
an action item. Any questions of Carol with this?
Just the letter of support from the board, you still need that?
Yes, and it's included in here, in the packet as well.
Okay.
There's a
I
letter of
thought- yeah, I
support.
thought I saw the letter.
And a resolution. I forgot to put that in the title. That is my fault. I apologize for that.
Carol, this is state funded,
Yeah, it's federally funded.
federally funded?
Federally funded.
What happens if that dries up or disappears?
Then we will not do the trail. Basically, we won't
So
do it.
We're not on the hook to
No, sir.
no match.
build it if
No,
it's
there
not
is no
met.
match to this grant.
All right.
So, Chair would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to turn this discussion item into an action item.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
opposed, same sign. Okay, now that's a motion to turn it into an action item. Now can we have do we need another motion, Carl? To act on it as an action item? as-
Yeah,
as-
you've
Okay, let's have
moved
another
it
motion
around
then.
on the agenda, and now you can act
Okay.
on it.
I'll make a motion to approve the multimodal transportation and mitigation trail.
Resolution. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Carol, thank you.
Thank you.
Carol.
I appreciate it.
Next item, resolution modifying the Pueblo West Committee of Architecture's application fee structure. Sean Winters.
Good evening, President Kroll, members of the board. Sean Winters, Director of Operational Support. So tonight I'm here for a discussion item. And basically, when Community Development expanded their staff this year with 2 neighborhood services officers, we thought it would be prudent to reassess the sustainable COA fees based upon the most current information possible. Bree, could you get me to page 34? And that will show us the assessment. So basically, when we expanded the staff, and I think that's track 317. One more, I think. There we go. So when we took a look at the fact we had 5 full-time employees, through interviews we determined that 1.75 of those employees would be working on the COA applications. And so when we took a look at that, we recognized that we were short of meeting sustainable levels. Additionally, the budget had also increased overall, including operational cost. And as a result, we would need to increase fees generally by 9.6% overall. Now, we did make a couple of changes here. First thing is late fees. Since the district hasn't implemented OpenGov, the online application process, the late submittals have pretty much gone to 0. So we'd be looking at eliminating the late fees. Additionally, we took a look at signage. We currently have 2 signage applications, and we felt that that was repetitive. We had one for permanent signage, we had one for temporary signage, and we just consolidated it into one single application, and we greatly reduced the fees for that to be $110, which is in line with fence review and also courtesy inspection by Committee of Architecture members. So essentially, after considering all the FTE requirements, the differences between 2024 and the estimated revenue in 2024 and projected sustainable revenue in 2025, we're proposing the fee schedule be revised with a approximate increase of 9.6%, and with the late fees being eliminated. I would be happy to answer any questions that the board might
questions?
have.
Sean?
What's a courtesy inspection?
Courtesy inspection is the second inspection that Committee of Architecture members perform in the event that the applicant did not go out and sign the property, stake the property corners, and stake out the structure.
So it's a re-inspection.
It's a re-inspection, yeah.
I would also like to know at some point what monies are available through the land sales fund, because I know at one time that was dedicated for support of COA. Is it still that way? And how much is there?
I can probably get you an estimate here shortly, Director Vickers. It is part of the fund balance and also reported as revenue that goes into the what's called the Community Development Fund, which is what in part funds the COA. All that funding is in 06406, which is the COA's fund for the Community Development Fund. So those are all still there. And the only thing is we've talked about in the past, I think those funds have been used for, and at the direction and approval of the board has been for special projects like a road improvement. But I'm not aware of any that have taken place in the last 5 years or so. There was one that was approved, but it was a road project as the transition took place, so that didn't end up completing.
So ongoing current land sales will go into that fund?
Currently, yes.
So how much is in that fund?
I'm pulling up right now.
Okay.
At least an estimate.
I have a somewhat of a concern about raising these fees this much. We've gone through substantial fee increases. I think the COA has raised fees in the last 2 to 3 years, right?
They actually raised them last year, and the issue was we took our best stab at increasing them last year without having a lot of data. What I did recognize that the previous time it was raised was maybe 2021, and I'm not sure that when they looked at raising those fees that they were looking to be sustainable. That's something that I'm looking for in terms of fees, because we are actually providing a service to an applicant as opposed to a service to the community. And I wanted to make this part of the community development staff in terms of the application program sustainable, which amounts to about 35% of all of the expenditures, because I know 65% or the balance of that, which is enforcement, has no stable, permanent funding coming in.
So the current people that are applying to build are paying for the enforcement?
No, they're only paying for the sustainable fees for the review of their application. I've kind of drawn a line in the sand. I don't think it's fair for those who are paying for an application to also pay for enforcement, which really the entire community benefits from.
So your budget of $591,000 does not pay the entire cost of COA for a year?
It pays the entire cost. The portion that I would say is projected for sustainable revenue for applications is $207,000. It's about 35% of the overall budget.
So you're only raising $207,000 a year in fees?
Approximately, yeah. So last year we have like $188,000, let's say $190,000 in revenue. By raising this almost 10%, we're really only raising the overall revenue by $19,000.
I think I can help a little bit with this. So for the 2025 budget in the Community Development Fund, there was an estimate for the end of 2024 for an estimated ending fund balance of about $2.2 million. So that is where a lot of the land sales, the additional revenue has been. The revenues that they projected for 2025 were user fees of $150,000, $200,000 for land sales, and another $60,000 for investment earnings. So they are still projecting revenue for land sales going into that fund, audited, and some of those numbers as far as the 2024 estimate will get shored up when we do the audit for 2024. So around June we'll have closer figures for it, or final figures for it. The audited 2023 revenue for land sales was $239,300 that went into that fund, but our estimated in 2024 might only be $60,000. So those land sales do fluctuate depending on what land is sold in each year. What I think Sean's referring to, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the revenue going from, lost it, that he shows on his page to show the projected sustainable revenue, 2025 projected sustainable revenue is $207,000 to capture what he feels is enough to cover the actual handling of the fees and the application process, not necessarily the enforcement process. Long term, as we go through this, we're likely not going to have enough revenue to cover the covenant enforcement aspect of it without anything additional if the fines aren't actually capturing all the costs associated with it, and they're used more as a deterrent for it. It's going to start eating into the land sales as they've already projected. Their revenue does not cover all expenses going into this year. And if we continue in this model where the district is not building out, we don't have 90% tracks, and the district is still responsible for covenant enforcement, that's the funding that's going to get eaten away is the land sales, what's in their fund balance.
So is there a transfer made from the land sales fund into COA to cover the shortfall of revenue?
So
And
land
how much
sales,
was it?
Land sales goes directly into the, well, obviously counting, but it goes directly into the community development fund. That's making up the fund balance if it is increasing for it. So if we were to sell a R1 property or something equivalent, and it's on that list, that revenue does go into the community development fund in that fund balance.
No, I realize that. My question, let me rephrase it. So what was the shortfall in COA's budget last year that precipitated taking money from the land sales fund to cover the cost of operating COA?
So I don't remember there being a shortfall last year. I think the issue is we opted to add 2 more inspectors in order to control and create a better trend for the yard maintenance and so forth within Pueblo West. And in doing so, we increased the expenses. So I can understand why he's trying to increase some fees to recoup some of that. But when we had that discussion, correct me if I'm wrong, Christian, but even as we had the discussion, knowing the fund balance that we had, the typical land sales that we have per year, we were only looking at being able to afford this for 2 to 3 years with the additional inspectors. I think that was part of the discussion before we would have to make some sort of adjustment.
I apologize, I don't recall specifically the years for it. I know we had a conversation that is only so many years that we could survive, especially if land sales were essentially we couldn't sell any more land.
Right.
I mean, we adjusted nothing else. I can share just an estimate from last year. Director Vickers, the estimated expenses for the COA before we brought on a lot of the additional personnel was $398,000, and the revenue was $365,000. So there was a little bit of a shortfall that year. This is larger, mainly in part because of the additional staff involved with covenant enforcement. And just to clarify, there is no, you won't see a transfer of land sales. The fund balance, the funds that are achieved through the land sales are going into the community development fund. So that 2.2 is part of million, is part of those land sales. And as we experience years where, let's say, they're $100,000 in deficit, that's where it's coming from, is the fund balance from there, which includes the land sales.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion on the floor? I can't remember.
I don't think so. I don't know.
I think we're just for discussion tonight.
Oh, discussion, okay, phew.
Yeah, and if there's anything
Lost
that you
my
would
mind
like
after
me
this
to
today.
change in this proposal, I'd be willing to look at that. So,
How much land do we have left as far as, that's something you can look up later,
Yeah.
just from our own.
3.68 million dollars in inventory. Those in the financial reports.
That's 6
Okay,
years.
is that it?
You know, since we're talking about land sales, if the district owns some property, say an R1, and somebody wanted to buy it, who do they contact?
Typically, the first point of contact would be our economic support specialist, which is Marcos Reyes. That's in our business administration department. Although if they contact anybody in the departments or anybody in the district, we would be happy to get them in contact with those folks. So if there's anybody reaching out, they should contact Marcos Reyes. It is on our website. And if not, we'll help them get in contact.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Sean, I think you're up next still, so you're gonna give us a track 317 update.
yeah. So, Bree, if we could go to the last page on that, I think it's page 64. maybe it's not the last page. There it is, right there. Yeah. So the last time I was here, we had two processes that we were pursuing. One was the minimal approach, installing signage where traffic appears to come onto district property from public right-of-way. We did install 5 or 6 signs, and then we went ahead and monitored the situation through the month of March to determine the effectiveness. And here recently we had a couple of occasions where somebody has gone and dumped debris, trash on the property. So I think we can assume that the approach was not effective. The second process that we were in, and we're currently still in, is the subdivision vacation plat, which is in your packet and is on the screen. Currently, we're preparing the packet. We're still waiting for all of the letters that we sent out to the local agencies to be returned with their responses. We're also waiting for a title commitment that we have ordered to come to us. And if we do get that title commitment, if we do get all of those local agency letters, our tentative application approval schedule is as follows. Submittal deadline to Pueblo County Planning and Development is April 3rd. It would then go to the Planning Commission on May 15th, and then the County Commissioners hearing on June 13th. If we do get our vacation approved, then that opens up a lot of other potential processes to try to resolve the issue with the dumping and the trespassing. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Questions?
There was discussion about digging a trench and putting a berm that most vehicles wouldn't be able to cross. Where is that in the mix?
That was not one of the methods that we proposed, and I really don't think it's probably practical from a cost standpoint.
It was mentioned by one of the traffic engineers for county.
Yeah, the county mentioned that.
If the county would like to contribute to the cause, we'd be happy to take that.
Because it would be in the road easement, so it would be their baby, right?
Yeah,
And it would affect drainage.
it could, yeah.
Any more questions? Right?
I brought up all my questions on
Friday.
On Friday.
I like it. Okay, Sean, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Desert Hawk Board Management Update. Christian, I think you should take that for us. There's nobody. Oh, Katrina, I'm sorry. It's about 4 spaces there. I didn't read far enough.
You're okay. Katrina Peter, Chief Administrative Officer, just coming back to the board to present an update on the Desert Hawk Board Management Board. The seat for the joint appointee was vacated effective January 1st, 2025. Sam Prohl and David Vecchio, both their terms expired at the end of the year. The board had previously put Director Axworthy in place of Dave Vecchio, as he was the Pueblo West Metro District appointee. But that still left the joint appointee that we needed to coordinate with Pueblo County on. The board made a recommendation of Mr. John Paulson. That was forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners and with the request that they also in turn make a recommendation or go with the recommendation that we had made. They have gotten back with us, so they have ranked their top 3 to 4 candidates, with the top candidate being David Vecchio, second Brian Lucas, and then it was a tie for the third with Aaliyah Blazer and Sam Prohl. So at this point, we need to have another discussion because Mr. John Paulson has withdrawn his application. I did reach out to all the candidates to make sure that they were still interested in the position. We had one other individual that also indicated that he was no longer interested. So the board will need to have further discussions on who they would like to make for a recommendation for that joint appointee. If it is not one of those top 3 candidates as outlined by Pueblo County, then we will need to engage in negotiations with them so that we can have a joint recommendation.
Who was the other one that dropped out?
Robert Pyle.
Robert Powell.
So what's your pleasure, board?
I know when I ranked them before, Brian Lucas was in my top 3, so that's pretty much where I'm at.
I think the board's kind of getting ready to go through, undertake a lot of monumental tasks here in the near future. I think somebody with some history with that board might be a good fit, just for the reason of having some backstory on there, some knowledge, some history with that board. You know, and I know there's just a couple members on that board there. You know, listen to everybody else and kind of vote on them. So it's kind of my take.
That makes sense too.
Yeah, I think, if I recall, Brian Lucas didn't answer the questions that were posed to him. Is that right? The initial application process?
I think he did. I think it wasn't within the initial time frame that we had requested, but I can double check right now.
I think they were on, I think the latest information we had, he had answers in there. Well, I had always been a proponent of somebody new on the Desert Hawk board. But what I will say about the appointees that the county has, I had a pretty in-depth, at our last meeting that Sam Kroll was at, we had about an hour-long discussion, and he seemed to have a lot of insight into golf courses. I think he was a pro golfer at one point, wasn't he?
He played professionally, and then he played in college on a full ride.
But he had a lot of good ideas of, changing things up and management styles that other golf courses do. Anyway, all I'm saying is I thought that the conversation was very good, so I'll listen to anybody else.
Swinging my boat.
I will correct myself. Brian Lucas did respond, and he actually responded the same day that the questions were requested.
Well, I think there's no question who I think, but, I don't want to be conflicted in recommending my son. He was on the board at the country club and oversaw the golf operations there, as Bree will recall. Played junior golf at Desert Hawk when he was 8 years old, and that's where he started his golf career. So he has a great deal of knowledge of that golf course. And with his educational background, young businessman, I think he brought a lot to the board for the last 3 years, as Bill said. So that's who I would move forward, of course.
Why don't you do a roll call vote?
Well, let Joe weigh in.
We voted originally for John Paulson as our #1 candidate. Did he give a reason why he no longer interested? Did he just get bored with our bureaucracy, or what happened? Do we have any idea? He's a resident, he still lives in Pueblo West. He had some insight, I thought, as a banker, and the golf course is in great shape from a golfer's point of view, but it's in bad shape as far as management. The sprinkler system leaks, and the budget is anybody's guess as to whether it's solvent or not. So I really thought Paulson would have, being a banker and having been involved with a golf course up in Arapahoe County, might help us wade through the next 5 years of operating that golf course.
And I think he withdrew his application, right? So,
Yeah, but I wonder why.
okay.
Too long.
So,
He did indicate in his response to me that there was a significant delay in the time period in which he had submitted the application, and he had assumed that he was no longer being considered by the county.
So Director Gray has recommended a roll call vote. Would you like to bring the name forward? I think you're...
Sure. I think Sam would be good, because he was the president of the appointees before, correct?
He was, at one point, he was the president of the board.
He was. I think Sam would be, just because he has a lot of insight for what they're getting ready to go through, so.
So shall we perform a roll call vote on
Sure.
that first nomination? So Bree, would you do the roll call? Bringing Sam forward?
First roll call vote for Sam Pearl. Director Gray,
Yes.
Director Axworthy,
Yes.
President Pearl,
Yes.
Vice President Mahaney,
Yes,
Director Vickers.
Yes.
We have a yes.
We have a yes. Okay. Thank you. Let's move to the board update follow-up. Now, Katrina, would you do that, or should we have one of our board members do that?
Yeah, I actually was not able to make the Desert Hawk Management Board meeting, so either the board or if someone else would like to jump in there.
I was going to lead in for this one. I appreciate it. So we've had our Christian J. Hine, District Manager. We've had a couple meetings regarding the Desert Hawk Golf Course. One was, I believe, March 14th-ish, and a joint meeting between the Board of County Commissioners and the Board of Directors to talk about the IGA, the Intergovernmental Agreement back in 2001 made between both entities regarding the golf course. Get a little bit of what it is, what it means, what that might mean for the future in discussion, as both entities do have an agreement that essentially transitions that golf course into joint ownership upon the payment of all lease debts and loans that are within the golf course. And the short of that is that there are some outstanding debts that are owed for which the payment of, even if the golf course is in a positive return of, let's say, $100,000 per year, might take 40 plus years to see that payment truly come to fruition between both entities, the county being owed somewhere in the ballpark of about $3 million and the district being owed some part in 1.7, with both water and land as elements. So I think that was a good conversation. I think it got a lot of the information out there and discussed between all elected officials on the page, so that way we can kind of start moving forward and discussing a little bit more about what that might mean for us and how we look at it. The second one, the point of this conversation, to talk about the golf course board meeting we had, I believe last Wednesday, March something. 19th? We'll go with 19th, sounds right.
Or 20th.
And in that we had the new county commissioners who have been appointed to the golf course board, so full county commissioners. We had directors, Director Vickers, Vice President Mahaney as our representatives, and we had the two seats, one I think appointed by for Director Axworthy in this interim, and then one is the joint appointee that had still up until that point been vacant, not there at that time. But the conversation was very much to talk a little bit about, there's a lot just for that golf course management board to consider. They've had a golf course manager for an extended period of time of I think 10 plus years or so, with Mr. Mike Zaremba, who has now announced he is going to retire. And in March 2026, when his contract would expire, he's not looking to renew it. So now this golf course management board has an opportunity to evaluate that and how they would like to move forward. So first part of at least our end of the conversation involved analysis we had done from our parks department, discuss how other golf courses were managed, what are the pros, cons, differences in opinion, advantages, disadvantages when it comes to different rules and different models of it, just to associate with the golf course management board for discussion, along with identifying if there was a transition to joint ownership, what would that look like, and what are the pros and cons associated with that if that were to occur in the future as well. Additionally, we talked a little bit about the analysis we had done within our water team and our utilities department about what is the perceived water loss when it comes to the sprinkler system and how much might that equate to potential for water resource for the district if fixed. Understanding that at the time we had been discussing the sprinkler system in the ballpark of $3.5 million to be able to completely satisfy and complete, and understanding that's still a large capital project for any entity to take on, understanding budget and constraints. We did get an updated copy which shows additional work done, I think, in association with the irrigation system. The irrigation system itself is $3.75 million, but the total cost of the project and everything associated with it runs up to $5.3 million. And so that's still an opinion of probable cost and cost estimate when it comes down to it, but those are getting to larger numbers and also more hopefully concrete numbers to understand the golf course has that large capital project on its horizon if it wants to be able to resolve that. Additionally, we did talk about, are there still ways to be able to phase it? Are there other elements of even our team going out there to identify where those leaks are, help narrow the focus to be able to do it in some form or fashion in ways that can be done across time rather than all at once? but it still leaves a very old system, a very old irrigation system. It's likely still in need of replacement because it has long lived past its useful cycle, and what to do about that. I think there was still more conversation. I just wanted to share that we did ask for additional information for the management board to continue preparing their budget for next year, understanding that a big part of that conversation is, will there be any major changes into how they'll look at the golf course management appointee or contracted hire and what that model looks like and what it costs. So we did ask for them to provide and assist us with a 5-year operating revenue and expenses report, including all transfers, capital, and any payments to contractors, projection of a 5 to 10-year capital project and equipment plan, a breakdown in revenue for internal versus external, different sources of revenue such as tournaments versus green fees. Did ask if there was a possibility of estimating golfers, where they come from, are they regional, are they outside, are we attracting more close by neighbors, are we attracting people outside of the larger community at large? And then got some more information about just the sprinkler system itself at that meeting. So we did have one last conversation, which was the frequency of those meetings, knowing that there are some big topics on the horizon. At this point, we are still keeping quarterly, and the next one I believe is in June. If at that time we are anticipating we should be ready to have a pretty serious and sincere conversation of how to move forward to be able to plan for budget, I think I understood at that time, if we don't, we may elect to have more frequent meetings, because at that point we're pretty close to the budget cycle and the requirement of putting that budget forward for the county, the enterprise, and everything to probably be budgeted for. Backwards planning for, if we're thinking March, end of March is when Mr. Zrember will step out. Ideally, we have a new manager of some form or fashion beginning of March, which means that process for hiring or selection comes probably beginning of the year, next year. So there's a lot of conversation and assurances we need prior to that. So I think that sums up as much as I can remember about it, but open for anything that I may have missed.
Did you say it's going to take us 40 years to retire the debt currently?
Not anything associated with the annual lease payment or the bond itself, but for the debts of the water and the land for us and the county's involvement for the operational expenses, the $3 million plus the 1.7 for 4.7 million total owed as loans, with $100,000 if it were all dedicated to repaying the loans, since there are no interest or non-interest bearing loans, then yes, 40 plus years if you were to follow that model.
So the 40 years includes the upgrade to the sprinkler system?
No.
It does not?
It does not. No. That was just talking about the loans. I apologize, Vice President Mahaney. I was just making the point of the loans and how long that would take.
At the current level
Correct.
Of profitability.
Yeah, profitability.
Well, yeah. Okay.
40 years, huh?
That's, so, and just to add, we did talk about more accurate accounting of monies that the county has put into Desert Hawk, to come back to reconcile that they are indeed making a profit and not monies being transferred that's going just to a loan. So we did ask for a lot of information from the county. We also really need to understand that when Mr. Zaremba retires in March, what we're talking about is, whether or not we move forward status quo with the same type of operation that has been running, or we look at other things, companies to manage it, different management philosophies. So I think there's a lot of things that need to be really hashed out, and I'm hoping that in June we'll realize that we need more time, more meetings to hash these things out, because this is a once in a lifetime thing. This contract has come up. He's been there for how many years?
Since I was with MCO Properties
20?
in '83.
Okay.
He was hired when I was hired.
Okay. So I think we need to really be diligent and try to get this right and increase profitability. And that's where Sam had a lot of ideas of how to do that. So I'm looking forward to really trying to figure out how to make that thing not a burden to the taxpayers and let the golfers support it.
Okay,
We
is
can
that
get
it?
a meeting together with Sam. I'd be up for meeting with him.
Okay, all right.
This week would be great.
Oh, your spring break, okay.
Yeah. It'd be ideal.
I'll reach out.
It would be ideal.
Can we move to the next item? A request by Vice President Mahaney for a detailed explanation about discontinuing water service for an extended period of time. Jim Blazing.
Good evening, President Prohl, members of the board. Jim Blazing, Director of Utilities. I hope I can answer the questions as detailed as requested. What I'm going to do is break it down in what we do with vacancies, let's say short-term, long-term. So if somebody wants to vacate the property, they have a choice. We give them a choice, and they can keep the meter in the meter pit. We do shut off service, but we keep the meter in the meter pit depending on when they want to come back on that vacancy of that property. During that time, the RTS is still in effect because the meter is in the pit, and the RTS stands for Readiness to Serve. So anytime somebody wants to renew their service or turn it back on, it's there ready to go. So that's under that situation. We have perhaps circumstances for longer vacancies, as I call them. Could be call to action from the service or something like that. Again, the property owner has a choice, and that is to leave the meter in, as I explained it just now, or they could remove the meter. Once the meter is removed, all charges to that property stops. There is obviously no usage, obviously no RTS that would apply to that. Those are the two major, what I broke down into vacancies of our property. There have been, on occasion, and I can think of maybe one or two during my time in utilities here, where the health department might get involved and they shut that property down for whatever reason they do. They placard the door, and then they ask us to terminate water service. And that's only happened once or twice during my time at the utility department here. So I don't know if that's a detailed, well then go ahead and ask me some questions.
Okay, first, let's review the water bills, the utility bills that were sent out. There was an additional on this last one of $1.50. What is that? What was printed on the bill, and please explain that.
Okay.
And then if you remove the meter, now the homeowner or whoever is billed for what, $150, or how much does that cost to have that meter removed?
It costs $100 to have it removed and $100 to have it put in, based
Okay.
off the fees that were approved by the board.
Okay, so that's what they face if they're gonna be out of town. Now, let's say there's a property that burned down or was torn down,
Yes,
and the owner decides to obviously would have the meter removed,
yes.
and they want to speculate on owning the lot. Now, how long will they be guaranteed service to connect again on that lot?
Well, in the case of, let's just say, one of your examples where a house burned down with fire, we would pull the meter, there would be no charge for that. And then once they rebuilt, we'd reinstall the meter on a house fire that destroys the complete residence.
Okay, so it cost them $100 to have the meter reinstalled. They wouldn't have to pay the tap fee and all those other things?
No, they wouldn't.
Okay. Now, what's the wording on the $1.50?
As we went over that the last couple board meetings, I think you're talking about the $1.50 for the service line repair program that we put out. And that is an average cost for us to repair or replace that service line from the main to the meter.
Okay. And what did the actual bill, printed bill, what did it say that was $1.50 was for?
I don't have that in front of me. I'd have to see.
In the last bill, it was actually stated as a service line insurance, and on the next bill that you guys get, it will be corrected.
To what?
The service line repair program.
Okay.
Yep.
And there'll be some explanation on the website on what that repair program, you explained, as I recall last time, that you would account all repairs to service lines for a year, and then if that doesn't generate the needed revenue, the would go up or down depending on,
What's needed for the years, yes. It'll have to be retroactive. We can't predict.
Right.
Yes.
and that'll be someplace on the website where people can find it?
I think we have it. We'll check.
I believe there was a couple messages that went out, update. I'll double check to see where you would be able to find it most recently. But I think notifications went out, and I think it would be able to be located on our website associated with those notifications. I don't think there's a banner or anything that still shows it though, so I can follow up.
I think there was a picture on the website that showed from the meter pit to the street is what it was, to the main, is what it showed.
I just have a quick follow-up question, just for clarity. On average, and I know this varies depending on the situation where the line is at, how much would it cost a homeowner previously to repair or replace the line from the water main to the meter?
It depends, again, but I'll give you maybe a range.
Yeah, that'd be
Depends if
great.
they have a short side, if they have a long side, if they're in asphalt, if they need traffic control, all the things associated with that repair. Wouldn't surprise me that your minimum charge for something like that would run up to $8,000.
Thank you.
And the maximum would be 20,000.
Depends on where they're at. That's how we came up with the average cost of $1.50. We had that whole range that we considered.
Okay, any more questions? Thanks for going over that again, Jim. And you're up again, utility road cuts.
Yes, thank you. Okay, my update reflects conversations I had, as a matter of fact, today. So going back, what we have in progress is an MOA with Pueblo County. And we're still waiting for their response. We met with them, I think, 2.5 weeks ago, and they added some added verbiage that they wanted to put in there, and we're still waiting. It's on the Pueblo County manager's desk. In between that, we've had one inquiry from a private asphalt contractor to inquire whether he'd like us to consider that company to repair our service lines. Towards that, I've been getting some costs from him, but we got to remember how that would delve into our purchasing policy on how we could do that. So my update is we're still working with the MOA on the county. The recent correspondence I got from the county today is their interpretation of the MOA is a backup. And that means if we can't get the roads repaired, that they would come in as a backup with those associated costs. So what my project is to get with the private contractor who has approached us, see what he does, see how he does, what his costs are, and how we could dovetail that to our purchasing policy.
Now, the county doesn't do this with any other entity, right? I mean, when somebody in the city tears up the road, the county nor the city, I don't believe.
No, the city's
Fix
on
it.
their own. The
Yeah.
county, Mesa Water out in the county, they let the county pave the roads, but their paving cuts are like 3 a year. That my discussion with
Right.
Mesa Water.
So, my preference would be private industry stepping in and doing it as a bid process or an RFP, or I know we've said we've had trouble with getting people that want to do it, but we had a private company repair the 2 test cuts, is that correct? that did, they did Hans Peak, and then they did Gulfview last
That
fall.
was a county.
I don't believe it was the county, was
That
it?
actually fell through. So the county actually ended up doing the repairs on that to where we were literally right at the cusp of doing it. And then we went out to the sites and the county had already repaired both Mangrum and Hans Peak. So we weren't able to actually do that trial like we were wanting to do to test compaction for flow fill versus traditional.
So do we have any idea whether or not the cost of having the county do it is competitive? Or,
We do have numbers to do that comparison. And the numbers would be what the county charged us previously, and then what the numbers will come in from this private contractor that I'm having a discussion with. But then I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and get outside the purchasing policy.
right. I mean, I see private paving contractors all over town repairing cuts. And they certainly repair the ones that companies make in the streets in Pueblo. You know, they get those repaired as soon as they're done. So I'm just a little puzzled as why we have a hard time getting private companies to be interested in doing this.
I think in the recent last 2 weeks, we've had another inquiry, I don't remember the name, so we've had 2 inquiries in the last 2 weeks from a private contractor.
Well, I would think it'd be worthwhile to pursue those.
We are.
Thank you.
The Mangrum was done by Tony Beltramo, private contractor. Now, whether the county paid for it, okay, but it was,
But that's what I thought, it was a private contractor.
No.
Contracts and then, yes.
So they contract.
Yes.
So are we looking at them contracting private contractors to fix our roads? I mean, that's like a middleman.
no, they're.
That's actually what happened in this first phase of it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll continue to update the board as to our progress.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, public comments anymore? Sign up. Done. Board member and district manager closing comments. I'll turn it over to Christian first.
Thank you very much. Christian J. Hine, District Manager. I just want to say I appreciated the review that took place for the 6-month performance. I had a chance to look at all those comments, and there was, whether it was just acknowledgement of things that had happened or understanding that there are always ways for improvement. I really appreciated the feedback. I will try not to win every argument, and I will try to remember to breathe, because there are good conversations to be had about how we can always have room to improve. So I appreciate that that my hope is that I've earned the consideration, and I appreciate the board's feedback. And I will share if there's anybody I know there was curiosity the last time our review was performed and feedback for it. So as always, I maintain that if you would like to see my review, I'm always open to share. So thank you again for the opportunity, and I have nothing else. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. Director Gray, comments?
I have nothing at this time.
Director Axworthy,
No additional comments.
Bill,
I'm good.
Director Mahaney.
In case anybody tuned in late, we're having a kite festival Saturday from 2 to 4, and it's free.
We're at?
It's at Civic Center Park. It's Carol? Carol must have left. Anyway, I think it's just a come and do your thing kind of a deal. So, could be a lot of fun. One of our taxpayers caught me over at Walmart the other day, and she made the comment, she says, "Why don't you guys have the wind quit blowing?" And I said, "Come to the Kite Festival at 2 o'clock Saturday. I guarantee the wind won't blow." But if it does, we'll have a kite festival.
And I have nothing. Congratulations, Christian, on your review and your pay increase. It's well deserved. So with that said, we'll move on to committee reports. First of all, Pueblo Economic Development Corporation, Brian Axworthy.
So there's heavy conversation regarding the need for Colorado legislative action to relax the EPA regulations for Colorado and allow for natural gas power creation, which seems to be a stepping stone anytime you shut down a coal plant, you need something to replace it. Natural gas is the cheapest, most reliable way to do that. And then that buys time for something larger, such as advanced nuclear or something like that, that can generate even more power. We're seeing a lot of businesses try to come to Colorado, specifically Pueblo, and they're coming with large power requirements. And there's even data centers that require a terawatt of power, and no one can supply that. So that's really the crux and some of the development and capacity of what we have to offer in terms of, building up our economy and adding jobs and so forth. So that's where we're at in Petco.
Okay. Brian, again, Pueblo West Chamber of Commerce.
So we didn't have our meeting, but we had, the weekend before, we had our board retreat. Had some good conversation. We have we're making good progress on our new membership packages that we have. And I've asked the director and the president of the board to make sure that they make an appointment with Christian and whoever else he'd like to be in that meeting to update Metro on the Chamber's work so far these past months and how we can help market our local businesses, which has been the direct focus and direction that we're moving towards. When talking to local businesses, when I joined the Chamber, I got the comment and the question, what's in it for me? I don't just want to pay money just to come to a Coffee Connections or some sort of networking social event. I need something, if I invest money into something, I need something that will return that money to my business. So we looked at heavy marketing strategy and looked at ways that the Chamber could offer those items to the business through their membership packages. So that's the direction we're heading. It's pretty revolutionary, but it's also at the same time it's coming. So other chambers are going to be doing the similar thing. The president of the board went to a conference recently, a couple months ago, and they were all talking about how chambers need to transition to this type of scenario and offering. So
Who is the board president? I'm sorry.
Karma,
Okay.
yeah. So she's been president for a year now, I believe. And then Elizabeth Hawk is the director, newly hired director. She was heavily involved with PDR or PBR.
Okay.
Professional rodeo?
Yeah, and they're moving to Texas. So she didn't want to move. She wanted to stay in Pueblo. So she came on board with us. But yeah, good things coming. We like to talk to Metro specifically about where we could place some billboards to help market our businesses. And then just they want to come and talk to you about their generalized plan. That's it.
Brian, thank you. Announcements and events. 6A Committee meeting March 28th, 9 a.m. at Fire Station 3 on Gold Drive. As Joe mentioned, Kites and Coffee March 29th, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. at Civic Center Park. Pueblo West Metropolitan District Board meeting April 1st, 5 p.m. April 1st. I'm sorry.
Is that an April Fool's joke?
Is it really April 1st?
Is that a typo?
Let me see real quick.
I think it's supposed to be the
April Fools, I get it. I got fooled. Okay. Okay, so our Pueblo West Metropolitan District Board meeting is not April 1st at 5 p.m., 356 South McCulloch. It'll be the second Monday, whichever date that is.
And that is
Committee of Architecture meeting
14th.
April 3rd,
Oh, 14th.
5:30, 356. You want me to tell you real quick?
Yes.
It will be April 14th. You forgot the 4. You just wanted to get me on that.
Seeing if you're awake. Appreciate it.
Spring Fling, April 5th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., Cattail Crossing. Pueblo West Road Sales Tax Advisory Committee quarterly meeting April 15th at 4 p.m. Gold Drive. And the Fishing Derby is April 26th, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Cattail Crossing. So with that said, that concludes our regular meeting. The chair would entertain a motion to recess our regular meeting and move into the advertised executive session.
I'll make a motion to recess our regular meeting and enter into an executive session for CRS 24-6-402 4B, conferences with an attorney for the public entity for the purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions, and 24-6-402 4E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations and developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. And 24-6-402 4A, Colorado Revised Statutes, concerning the purchase and the acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of any personal or other property interest. It's a letter of intent for district property and discussions related to the reserve at Pueblo West.
So would you make part of that motion maybe a 5-minute break?
And also include a 5-minute recess.
There we go. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We are recessed.
Hey, Mr. Potter.
Hey guys, Tom Tabling. I don't know if I'm in the right place. I'm kind of concerned about preventing a wildfire. The motorcycles, dirt bikers, and ATVs have created a path in that Turkey Creek dry bed area. Yeah, off the end.